following is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com. Live video streaming of this event is made possible in part by WLCN's live stream technology sponsor, Me Realty, located at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln, and online at merealty.com. It is 4:02 p.m., time for the 4 p.m. 411. I am Loyd Kirby, the marketing manager here at WLCN 96.3 FM. Once again, you can listen to the 4 p.m. 411 each Tuesday afternoon, starting, coincidentally enough, at 4 p.m. On 96.3 FM. You can listen via the Mixler app if you download that to your tablet or smartphone, or you can watch our live stream of the show via our YouTube channel if you just go to WLCNonline.com. Click on the Watch Live badge, and that will take you right to our live stream. So today, we have a lot of times we have guests that are involved with an upcoming event, or maybe there's like a month recognition for whatever organization or cause they support. But this month we're taking a little bit, or this week rather, we're taking a little bit different approach. Our guest is Devan Duncheon, who is the co-owner of Culvers of Lincoln. So, Devan, thank you for being with us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, and I asked Devan to be on the show for a couple reasons. First of all, I love the burgers. We live literally a block away from you, so you're easy for my wife and I to get to. But also, I think it's kind of a unique, what do I want to say, operation, I guess, that you have there in terms of not only just being about selling burgers and fries and custard and that, but also as far as giving back to the community and supporting the community and its different organizations.
Right.
How did that mindset start, that it wasn't just all about, selling food and profits and that, and about giving back to the community?
That actually starts very early on in Culver's history with Craig Culver. He has, from the beginning, always said we're in the people business. So Culver's offers a lot of training, very low-level manager classes, maintenance classes, things of those nature, and they let everybody know right off the bat, we are not in the food business, we are in the people business.
Oh, okay. So early on, as you said.
Yes.
So speaking of early on, how long have you been there at Culver's, that you've been part of the restaurant?
I have been at the Culver's in Lincoln since I was 16.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Worked my way through high school and college, and decided the people business was for me.
All right. And if there's a butter burger attached to that people business, so be it. So,
yes.
So what made you choose Culver's as far as getting involved there, working there? Was it just like a high school type job and you just sort of stayed there?
Yeah,
or,
that is exactly what it was. I had a few friends that worked there, and they really liked it, so I got a job there, and the rest is history.
And now you've worked your way up. Have you? I don't know the proper titles, but I'm assuming there's different rungs of the ladder that you've kind of climbed up to where you are now. Can you kind of run us through that history?
So you start as a team member, and then you kind of move up. The titles change a little bit over the years. Trainer was one, and then shift leader. And then we moved up to management, which was like the manager, assistant manager, and then general manager, and then eventually owner-operator.
Owner-operator, and that's you.
Yep.
So very good. If you have questions of Devan, 217-648-5510 is the number to call, or you can email your questions, 4pm411 at WLCNonline.com. We're talking, as I said, with Devan Duncheon, the co-owner of Culver's. So there's, as I mentioned, there was a reason why I asked you here, not just with the community-based activities of the restaurant, but there's a lot of, or I wouldn't say a lot, but there's talk that you hear around businesses growing and developing and towns flourishing, about there's a need to attract young people and to get them to stay in the community, because the more popular route is young folks will kind of grow up and get their degrees or technical training or whatever, and then usually migrate to a larger city. But you have, as we were talking about, chosen to plant your roots here in Lincoln, and now you're co-owner of Culver's in Lincoln. What influenced that decision for you? Why'd you decide to stay around Lincoln versus going to a larger area? A
small town just has a different feel to me than a big town. It's more personal. I would think in a big town you wouldn't have as many regulars as you necessarily do in Lincoln. There's nothing better than seeing the same people once a week. You get to know them, you get to watch their kids grow up. And I just really couldn't see myself not living somewhere where I could get out of the city. I love to spend time outdoors, so that would really put a damper on that.
Yeah, it would make it difficult, I would think. So what, I just had a brilliant question that just sort of escaped as soon as I started to ask you that. And it will come to me at like 3 in the morning, so we'll move on from that. So let's talk a little bit about the community nights. You mentioned that Culver's is in the people business. But even so, I mean, businesses can contribute to, fundraising auctions or different causes like that. But you actually go about it a little bit differently with Culver's there, and you actually take some of your profits and turn those around to community organizations. Can you kind of tell us maybe if you know how that got started, how it did, or just kind of what the rationale is behind that?
I mean, that is also a Culver's thing. They call them share nights. They want to be present in the community. They want to have the Culver's name present in the community. There's no better way than helping others out, giving some of what we got to those organizations.
And it's a variety of organizations, too.
Right.
I mean, in putting our community calendar together on our website, you always get that annoying text from me, what's going on this month, but everything from, school organizations to, did I see one like National Rifle Association?
Yep.
As well as a roller derby team we were talking about last month. So it's or if there is a specific need, like someone who maybe has extra medical expenses or facing that kind of crisis.
Absolutely.
Or the one we talked about that I told you I was a little shocked when I saw it, Amigos Tacos.
Right.
I remember seeing that listed and thinking, wait a minute, Culver's sells food, Amigos Tacos sells food. Aren't they kind of sort of supporting their competition? What kind of influenced that?
I personally just love to see people thrive. So if I can help just a little bit to be part of the reason that they're thriving, there's nothing better to me than that. And I mean, yes, we're competition, but I would say at the same time, there's room for us all, especially here in town. So
Sure.
If they can grow from it, there's nothing better, like I said.
And I don't know, are tacos on the menu at Culver's?
No.
Okay, so sort of competition.
I love a good taco, so.
Yeah, you and me both. So we've reached almost our first break time. So once again, we're talking with Devan Duncheon from Culver's of Lincoln. If you have questions or comments or want to tell her maybe about your last experience there, or maybe a suggestion or comment, 217-648-5510, the number to call, or you can email your question to 4pm411 at WLCNonline.com. We will be back in 2 minutes with more with Devan Duncheon. Live video streaming of this event is made possible in part by WLCN's live stream technology sponsor, Me Realty, located at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln, and online at merealty.com. And we are back on the 4 p.m. 411. Once again, our guest is Devan Duncheon, the co-owner of Culver's of Lincoln. If you have questions or comments, 217-648-5510, the number to call. We are here with Devan until 4:30. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow to the Viewpoint program with Dara Entwistle. That begins now at its new time, 8 a.m., and runs until 8:30. The guest tomorrow will be Seth Goodman, talking about the Balloons Over 66 Festival, which is fast approaching, as well as Alice Rote from the Logan County Tourism Bureau, and that's tomorrow at 8 a.m. with Dara Entwistle and Viewpoint. But right now, as I said, we have Devan Duncheon with us from Culver's of Lincoln. So I remembered the question I was going to ask you. We were talking about sort of your progression up the rungs of the ladder and the different titles and so forth. Did you, maybe not when you first began in high school, but at some point, did you have aspirations of becoming a co-owner or having an ownership stake in Culver's or in something food-related or people-related? What sort of made you decide to get involved in that way?
I originally was going to go to vet school. I like animals. I like being around them. And then as I was going to school, I decided that I did not want to go to school for that long. It wasn't for me. And then Elaine All had presented me this other opportunity with the mentorship program that Culver's does. And she wasn't forceful about it, I would say, but she definitely let me know that that was an option if I decided to go that route. So I did end up changing my major, small business management. And really, from the time I was old enough to talk, I think I was telling everybody that I didn't want somebody to be my boss. So it really just worked out very well. I am a franchise. Culver's does essentially tell me what to do, but they're very, what's the word I'm looking for, lenient when it comes to how you run your business.
Okay.
So that's really great. Culver's is a great fit for me to not have anybody tell me what to do. My childhood dreams come true.
And you mentioned Elaine Awe there. She, of
Yes.
course, was and still is as an ownership stake in it, so has been there at Culver's and has been an owner for many years.
Yep.
You mentioned she wasn't forceful about it, but did working around her and working at Culver's, has that sort of, influenced you, or did that kind of inspire you, I guess maybe is a way to ask that? Or
I would say watching a woman in a position of power in a primarily man-dominated industry was inspiring. So I think that was a great way for me growing up to see what I could do if I put myself out there and pushed myself a little bit. So that was great, yeah.
And so what's been, in moving up the ladder into your ownership role, what's been sort of the biggest surprise or the thing that maybe you didn't anticipate, either good or bad, of being a co-owner of Culver's now?
I would really say that my biggest surprise is that I just really enjoy watching the team members grow. I do think that that's my favorite part about owning Culver's, whether they use it as a stepping stone, whether it's long term. I just really like to watch them grow. We have so many people that started out as like 16-year-old kids that still come back, and you see them grow into these adults and shape the way that I don't know, I just like to have an influence on the way that they see the world.
And so you mentioned earlier about how Culver's is in the people business, not the food business.
Right.
Other than just that statement, like, are there certain, activities or things maybe that come from a corporate office or regional office? I'm not sure how it's structured, but that maybe encourage that the people skills or the people, getting to know your team members and things like that? Or is that sort of built into if someone comes and becomes a team member there at Culver's, will they, is that part of what they will experience there?
You mean from franchise?
Well, just if someone comes off the street to Lincoln and applies and gets hired there, will they, I understand you're saying you're all about helping them grow, watching them grow, and so forth. But are there things that Culver's does, like whether it's certain employee programs or seminars or webinars or anything they do to kind of help with employee development and sort of nurturing those employees along?
Yeah, maybe not at a team member level, but they definitely do as at the management level. So they push that from the get-go. They have classes that we can send our younger managers to. It's called a manager level 1. It's very low level and basic manager stuff, but it is from the beginning taught to them that like I said, you need to be good to people, and that includes your team. Really, we couldn't do any of it without the team, so they are the most important part of it.
Right, and of course they're the ones that are sort of the face of the franchise. If someone comes in and steps up to the counter to order, that's who they're going to see.
Right.
And like it or not, they are Culvers at that moment for that particular customer. So how have you... how many workers are there at the Lincoln Culvers?
There's usually around 30.
And that's full and part-time people in total. How are things staffing-wise? We've heard, since COVID and so forth, that it's hard to find workers, or workers don't necessarily stay in one place for too long. Does that impact you as well?
Knock on wood, we're not doing too bad right now. With school being back, we are a little short right now during the day, but I like to think that if you treat your team well, they'll treat you as well. They'll treat you well back. So we have a lot of people that have been there for a good amount of time, and I think that it has to do with the management team. They're great. I love all of them. It starts at the top, though, so if they're not being good to people, then the team isn't going to be good to people. So it really just goes to show how good the management team is at being good to the team members, because they are the face of the restaurant and they treat the community well. So
as co-owner of Culver's, what is a typical day like for you, a typical schedule, or is there such thing as a typical day for you?
Well, I would say if you asked me that right when I had bought into Culver's, I would tell you my typical day started at 7 a.m. I was available on the phone all the way until 11 o'clock at night when they get out of there, but like you had mentioned in our talk before this, things happen. People drive through walls. The power goes out. Right. So I would say that there's really not a typical day. You don't know what you're walking into for the day, which is great. I mean, there's no repeated over and over and over again. You never know.
Yeah, so once again, we're talking with Devan Duncheon, the co-owner of Culver's of Lincoln. 217-648-5510, the number to call if you have a question or comment, or you can email us, 4pm411 at WLCNonline.com. We'll go ahead and take our second break now, and we'll have more with Devan Duncheon right after this. And we are back on the 4 p.m. 411. Our guest, once again, Devan Duncheon, co-owner of Lincoln Culvers. If you have questions or comments, 217-648-5510, the number to call. Before we went to break, you talked about the drive-thru at Culvers, which we talked about prior to going on the air. But folks may not be, if they didn't see your facial expression, if they weren't watching the live stream, they may not have understood. You weren't talking about the traditional drive-thru that has been in operation there for a few years. So you did have an incident there at the restaurant. Can you kind of tell us what happened? And like when I initially saw the Facebook post, I thought, wow, they're going to be there's structural damage. They're going to be closed several days, if not weeks. But I don't know, 2 days later, 1 or 2 days later, we're open. So, I mean, as bad as things were, I'm sure it definitely sounds like it could have been a lot worse.
Oh, absolutely. Accidents happen, first and foremost, everybody was okay. Luckily, it was just our employee bathroom that got hit. The hole in the wall looked way worse than it was. We just had to patch that up, and we were good to go a couple days later.
Okay, so it was more cosmetic damage, I guess, rather than structural, so that made it easier. So now, since I've exhausted my list of Culver's questions, we get to reveal a little trivia. I don't know, maybe it is a well-known fact about you, but
probably not.
Probably not. But I don't know, you seem like, when I think of the stereotype of what we're going to talk about, I think of like really aggressive, maybe muscle-bound individuals who participate in this activity.
Not me.
Which does not really. You aren't. I mean, I've seen you at the restaurant, and we've talked here. You don't really come off that way to me. So, for the folks who don't know what we're talking about, Devan has an interest and has participated in a particular sport, which I kind of sort of knew it was around Central Illinois, but I didn't know there were multiple teams, as we've discussed. So, Devan, do you want to tell the folks what your little, I don't know, passion or your interest is that we're talking about?
Yeah, I like to play roller derby. I haven't been on a team since before COVID, but before COVID kind of killed it a little bit. Yeah, that's what I did at least twice a week for... We had 2.5 hour practices, so a few hours a week.
And are you on the team you were telling me about? Was that the one in Decatur, or was it a different team you were participating with?
I was actually with Mid-State Mayhem in Springfield. Okay. But COVID unfortunately killed that team. So. Okay.
And boy, roller derby. I think the last time I saw it was. I was probably single digits years old, and I remember watching it. And my dad watching it, and I know there's people skating around in a circle, and one particular person's important that they make the laps. But what is roller derby? Can you kind of summarize it for someone who I've seen it and I recognize it, but I don't really know how that works?
So the roller derby that you're thinking about was actually scripted. Did you know that?
I have kind of
like
idea.
Wrestling.
Yeah.
So. Fortunately or unfortunately, fortunately for me, because I don't want to take any elbows to the face, you can't use your elbows. So imagine you're wearing a T-shirt, and then you can use all of that to hit people. Nothing in the spine. They're very adamant about that, which is great. But pretty much you have a jammer, which is the important one. They wear a star on their head, and then you have 4 blockers out on the track with you, and the jammer is trying to get around the blockers. Okay. So once they make it through the pack, they go around, and then for everybody on the other team that they pass, they get a point for it.
Okay. And then do you play to a particular score, or is there a time limit? Or
there are 2 30-minute halves. Okay. And then each jam, which is where you get out there, you get going, is 2 minutes long, or unless it gets cut short by the lead jammer. There's a lot of technicalities with it, but that's just the short and sweet version of it. And
so where do these games take place, like at Central Illinois places?
Yeah, there was actually one this past weekend that I went to watch for the Decatur team that was at the Decatur Civic Center.
Really?
Yes.
And is it the same kind of a roller derby track that I am imagine from my childhood?
Are you imagining one that's like slanted? This one is flat, so it's on a flat track, yes.
Okay. And are there, you mentioned blockers and you mentioned the jammer. Are those, is that as far as it goes in terms of positions in roller derby?
Yes.
There's not
there's also one called a pivot, but they are acting as a blocker, but they can take the jammer position if the jammer gets in a bind. So they can like pass the helmet cover to them, and then they can go and score points.
And so at these practices, what do you practice? Do you just practice like running into one another?
Yeah,
or
pretty
is
much.
Is there like football or basketball, there's designed plays about this personal pass here and then go to this corner, and so are there strategies like that in terms of blocking and so forth?
There is a lot of strategies, actually.
Really?
Yes. I only played for a couple of years before COVID, and I would say that I was like very tip of the iceberg on what I know. So other people know a lot more than me. They know a lot more strategies. And
so in terms of Central Illinois, you mentioned there's the team in Decatur.
Yep, the Prairie Land Punishers.
I think we were talking about there's one in Peoria. Is that still in existence? Are there other Illinois-based teams?
There are other Illinois-based teams, yes. I would say as far as Central Illinois goes, though, those two are about it.
And so, are you going to be the comeback kid? Are we going to see you resurrect your career that we can cheer you on?
I've been thinking about it, but I'm not sold on it yet.
And so what is I don't know if you know the answer to this, but what is like the typical background of the people, like age-wise? Are they all
over.
ages? Really?
Yep. All ages, all backgrounds. It's really wonderful to see people of such different backgrounds and cultures and stuff come together. Just the camaraderie in it is fantastic.
And when you do join a team, like if you were to join the Decatur team, obviously you mentioned you have the practices, but then as far as games go, do you have to like travel a significant distance for games primarily, or?
I'm not sure exactly what their rules are on it. I know with my last team, I think it was like they found teams within 4 hours of us, so up to Chicago, over a little bit. Not super far.
And if you can recall back, what does a roller derby season consist of? Like, is it weekly games? Is it every couple weeks? Is it a 10-game season, a 30-game season? How do those things work?
The season that I played with the team in Springfield, I want to say we had like maybe 5 or 6.
Oh, okay.
They're bouts. So those would be the games for roller derby. Not a whole lot because it's very taxing on your body.
I'm sure. Yeah.
It takes some recovery time after, especially if it's an intense game. But yeah, like 5 or 6 major bouts for the year, and then some scrimmages here and there that you can do.
And then is there, like, how many people? You said there's 4 blockers and the jammer.
Yep.
Are those the only 5 that are skating at the time?
Yep.
How many, like, are there 5 substitutes, or are there several substitutes on the bench, or does that kind of vary from team to team?
I'm not sure exactly how many people they have
on the roster or
on the roster, but I know that it's probably around like 12 to 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then probably, they've got other jobs like owning Culver and Lincoln and things, so probably not everyone can make it to every game.
Right,
so we've got people that sub in that way. So very interesting. Well, you'll have to keep us informed with that. We've talked about our Cheap Seats Saturday morning sports show that maybe we can talk to some folks. Maybe once you make your comeback, we can follow your trail from Culver's owner to roller derby legend or something.
Yeah.
So our guest has been Devan Duncheon from Culver's of Lincoln. We're out of time, so if you wanted to call in, I guess if you want to call, we can relay a question to Devan, but thank you for being with us.
Yes.
And we will look forward to, like I said, seeing you at Culver's and seeing you on the, is it called a rink or a ring or a...
The track.
The track,
yep.
Okay, on the roller derby track eventually. So, as I mentioned before, don't forget to tune in tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Seth Goodman and Alice Rote will be the guests on the Viewpoint program with Dara Entwistle, talking about the Balloons Over 66 Festival coming up in a couple of weekends. But for now, this has been the 4 p.m. 411 with Loyd Kirby and our guest, Devan Duncheon. Thank you for being with us, and we will talk to you next week. Live video streaming of this event is made possible in part by WLCN's live stream technology sponsor, Me Realty, located at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln, and online at merealty.com. The preceding program is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com.